Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's workshop. My name is Mike Stratton. I am a systems engineer here at Variphy, and I will be your host. Today, I am joined by Brian McKay. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good,
How you
good,
doing?
sir.
Good, good.
For today's workshop, Brian is going to show us how to migrate our database archives. Hang on, let me unpause my screen here. There we go. Moving forward, we are going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. We'll jump into a live demo where Brian will show us how to migrate database archives. We'll pause some Q&A and get some of your questions answered during the demo. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel, which should be in the bottom right corner of your screen. And after Q&A, we will award one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. Quick overview of Variphy. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration, providing industry-leading CDR, UCCX, Cube analytics, along with fully customizable dashboards, remote phone control, change and DID management, and coming very soon, Zoom phone analytics and dashboards. But today we're going to focus on the database archiving, and if you have any questions on any of our other features, or if you have some interest in participating in our Zoom beta testing, please feel free to chat with me with the Q&A panel or reach out to your account manager for more information. One more thing before we kick things off, Variphy does offer a consultative service that provides you a personalized experience with your Variphy system. Variphy SE, the Variphy SE team will engage with you one-on-one to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Variphy SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you a completely hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us, and we'll be glad to speak more in depth about our enhanced consultative services. All that said, we are going to head into the wild. Brian, take it away, sir.
All right. So thank you all for coming, and happy Valentine's Day this week to all who celebrate. Me being the big romantic I am, I got my wife dinner reservations, but she was pretty happy with that, so it turned out well. All right, so today we are going to be discussing how to migrate your archive databases off of the current server and onto a different server. And there's a couple of scenarios where you may want to do this. Now, I don't know if you've all seen our previous webinars, but we have discussed the new Variphy database migration feature. This is something new we added to allow you to more easily manage your data and split your data off into chunks. So if you were familiar with the older interface of Variphy, you would see that there was only one way to link to one database, basically, and that was similar to the menu here. We've changed the menus up a little bit, but basically you could specify your database server and your database name here, and that would be your main database. And then if you wanted to create archive database, you basically have to create like multiple copies of the same cluster and label them, archive, 2020, 2021, etc. It was kind of a hassle doing it that way, so we kind of vastly improved the way we do that now, where you can link multiple databases to your cluster in here. So currently we just have one in here, but I'll show you in a bit how we do that. You can associate database archives, pick your database servers, pick your databases that you want to add as the archive from the drop-down list. So basically any database it sees that's available, you'll be able to choose that as an archive database. So the scenario here, though, is what if you have all your data kind of in one place and you want to split that out? Why would you want to do that, and how would you go about doing that? So I'm going to give you kind of a customer use scenario that actually happened recently. That was a good example. But basically the point of this is to kind of reduce the resource cost of storing your data. If you have a large environment, a lot of endpoints, large call volume. It's going to be kind of tedious to maintain a large database. It's going to require a lot of resources over time, especially if you're keeping a multi-year database of call data and you're doing 100,000 calls a month or more, for example. That's going to be a lot of resource requirements to maintain all that data. Whereas if you're only keeping like the most recent, say 3 months in active data, it's going to require a lot less resources to keep that data cached and accessible all the time. And then you can split off into archive databases that aren't really being cached, aren't really, being kept in the cache constantly. And by cache, we mean in active memory. So it's just a lot easier to do this. Now, you may not have a use for this if you're a smaller organization, not that many endpoints, don't have a crazy call volume, then you may not even need this feature. But it's definitely going to come in handy if you're a large organization and you need to split it off by years or even quarters, depending on how high your call volume is. You can do that with the archiving. So in this case, let's say you want to move your current archive to another server. Why would you want to do that? Well, usually it's because you're going to have to retire the server that it's currently on, or it's because you're running out of resources and you can't really spare more resources on the current server because it's on a ESXi that is, sharing resources with a bunch of other servers, and you can't really spare any more disk space or memory or CPUs to the Variphy box to keep maintaining this large amount of memory and cache. So, most customers I've worked with aren't fortunate to have, aren't fortunate enough to have like an endless bucket of resources to keep throwing at the server, because that is a possibility. Also, we could keep scaling up the single server and just keep throwing more resources at it as time goes by as needed. But, that's not always most ideal situation, and most customers don't always have the resources available to do it that way. So that's where we come into the case of moving the databases off of the server to somewhere else. So this happened with a customer I worked with recently. They had Variphy for a long time. We're very happy with the product, but they were on a kind of an older server build. They've been keeping years worth of data on a MySQL database. And then they had recently decided to switch over to a Microsoft SQL database going forward, because that was going to be more efficient with them. And that's usually something we recommend with a larger enterprise environment, is using like a Microsoft SQL server. It just has better scalability and better backup options than MySQL does. But for most customers, MySQL is just fine. It's convenient. It doesn't cost any licensing. It usually coexists on the Variphy server with the Variphy app just fine. But this customer had a high call volume, and they also had a lot of reports and a lot of dashboards. And they were starting to notice some slowness with the system. So, and they had a corporate mandate that they had to retire this server because it was an older build and it was end of life, and they just kind of wanted to get it on the new server and kind of streamline things and compartmentalize things a little better, so the performance would be better. So what we ended up doing was moving the old primary database on MySQL off to a different server that just had minimal server resources, basically just enough to run SQL Server or MySQL Server bare bones, and that was their archive. And then they kept the Variphy server running just Variphy, no SQL Server at all, so they could throw more resources at Variphy, so it would perform better with all the reports and dashboards they were running. And then they kept their production data on the new Microsoft SQL Server. So, it may not always be the most ideal situation, splitting it across 3 boxes like that, but in their case, it was the best solution at the time, so that's what we went with. And it wasn't really too difficult to set up that kind of config. So basically, all you really have to do to migrate is just map a new database server mapping in Variphy, which is going to be here in System Database Servers. And I've got a few set up already. So we've got a couple Microsoft SQL servers. We've got a couple of MySQL servers. I've got one locally here on my box that I'm running Variphy locally on. And then I've got a remote one, which is kind of our test lab, which has got a ton of databases on it. And then we have the two Microsoft SQL servers. The 153 is an older one, so I'm going to, basically simulate moving it to 152, which is a newer SQL server, and kind of show you the process. Now, let's go ahead and go back here. I'm going to associate one of these. So this is the corporate cluster. Production CDR is the main database. I'm going to associate one. Let's start with Microsoft SQL. So I'm going to associate the corporate cluster demo is the archive database that I created for this demo. Keep in mind that these are just blank databases. They don't have actual data in them, and that's because I've only got about 20 minutes to do this. And these processes can take some time. Depending on the size of the database, it can take anywhere from several minutes to several hours to complete, just depending on how large the database is. So obviously just using blank database is going to be quick and easy. So we have this archive database here associated to the cluster, and this is where the older data would be stored. But we want to move it off of this box because this box is going to get retired or whatever, and we're going to move it to the new SQL server. So the way we go about doing that is first we back up the database, which is this one. So this is the old server here. And if you're familiar with how to do this in Microsoft SQL, then this will be old hat to you. A lot of times you may not even touch this. You may have a database admin team that guards this fiercely. So you will pass this off to them to do. And just say, hey, make me a copy of this and copy it over and restore it to the new server, and they will know how to do that. But basically, you're just going to go to tasks. You're going to do, excuse me, tasks, backup. And when you back it up, because we're going to be putting it on a new server, we're going to do a copy-only backup. Which is going to do just kind of a full standalone database backup here. And then we're going to add the location that we want the backup to go. So that I'm just going to add it in the standard backup folder in Microsoft SQL Server. Add that. And then you can just go ahead and click OK, and that's going to create the backup. And obviously it took 2 seconds because this is a blank database. If this had real data, it would take a lot longer than that. But so now you have your backup, and what you're going to want to do is move that backup. And I've already gone through this process once. You'll see the same files in here. But basically, you're going to move it over to a share on the new server. So this is the backup I would move over. We'd move this over. Yeah, sure. I'll just say don't copy because it's already there. You copy it over to the share, and then you're going to go to the new server, which is in here in vSphere, because I could not get RDP to work on this one for some reason. I'll have to figure that one out later. Hold on a second. Yeah, this one. Hold on a second. It keeps disappearing on the screen for some reason. Let me try minimizing this, maybe. And okay, hold on. I don't know why it won't stay up here. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Let me try. I love when it does this. Okay, let me just reconnect to it. So it's 152. Let me try. I think that was on .6 here. Yeah, 152. Okay, let me open another console. Hold on, let me try closing this one. I don't know what's going on. Every time I try to bring it up, it like beeps at me and then goes away. So I'm not sure what the problem is, but let me try it from this window. Open console. Okay, now I got it to open at least. That's good. Okay, there we go. All right, so you can see I've already got a CC demo in here because I've already restored it previously, but just to go through the process, you would move it from the share folder that we copied it to the backup folder here, which is just going to be the standard MS SQL backup folder in the you know, program files, Microsoft SQL, blah blah blah. It won't really see the file unless you have it in there, so that's the best place to put it to make it easier. And then you would just do database, restore database. You would choose from the drop down, there's the CC demo, and then you just, it's going to show that it's the full copy, hit OK. And then that's going to put that in here with the rest of the databases. Then you're going to go back to verify. Now, let's say I want to try to add it here. I'm going to add the 152 server. You notice it doesn't show up in here, even though we just saw that it was in there. And that is just kind of a fail-safe and verify to keep you from adding two databases with the same name at the same time, because that can cause all kinds of confusion, so we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the old mapping, and then we're just going to add. And now it shows up again under the other SQL server, and then we can add it in. And there you go. And that's going to add that in as the archive. So yeah, just keep in mind that you can't have two databases with the same name at the same time. You can have multiple databases with the same name spread across multiple servers, but you can't have them added in verify at the same time. So same scenario. Let me delete this one. I'm going to associate the MySQL one now. So I'm just going to do the MySQL local one. There it is. That's the only one I've got on this box. Okay, so that's going to put that in there. So the process for migrating the MySQL data is a little different. It's a little more cumbersome, to be honest, but it's it's not too complicated. It just involves some command line, and it's not as convenient as the using the Microsoft SQL Studio, but it's fine. It's not that big a deal. You can do it through another utility called MySQL Workbench, which I didn't actually have it set up here, but that's kind of a similar tool to Microsoft SQL Studio. But I'm just so used to running a command line, I find that easiest because I could basically do this in command line all day. Let me show you how that works. Basically, we're going to get into MySQL. So the command's right there. I'll just run it again. MySQL dump is the command. So you have to be in this path in MySQL Server 8, in the bin folder. That's where the MySQL dump utility is going to be. And you want to run this in command prompt because it doesn't really work in PowerShell for some reason. PowerShell throws an error, but it works fine in command prompt. So I just use command prompt on a Windows box. And in a Linux box, it's not going to matter anyway. So, but I just do a dump to this temp folder, ccdemo.sql. The backup folders for MySQL is always going to be .sql. For the Microsoft one, it's going to be .bak. You just run that. I'm going to put in the password, MySQL password. Okay, and that should be done. Obviously, so if this was an actual one populated with data, it would probably just sit there for quite a while. The cursor would just sit there flashing. And then when it eventually finished, it would go back to the prompt like this. And really, that's another thing about doing the MySQL one, is that's the only way to tell when it's finished. It doesn't give you any kind of status like the Microsoft SQL one does, where it kind of gives you an estimated time, how long it's going to be to complete. It just sits there flashing until it's done, and then it goes back to the prompt, and then you basically know it's done, and you can go back and check the file size to make sure it looks good. so let's go ahead and go to WinSCP. Let me drag this one over. Okay, so basically I did the same thing. Here's the local temp file with the backup. I just dragged it over to the temp file on the SQL server, not SQL server, the Linux server, and then we're going to import that into the MySQL server on the Linux box with a different command. So let me go over to that. So we're going to go with the putty session now, and then that command is going to be MySQL. It's actually up above there because I ran it earlier, but root -p for password, cc demo, temp, cc demo.sql. Whoops, too many dots. And it's going to ask for the password. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I was missing an L. Okay, and then it's standard password here. Okay, and that's done as well. Again, this would take a lot longer if it actually had data in it, but since it's basically an empty database, it takes all of 2 seconds. And then same process, you just delete the local archive, and you associate the other database server, and scroll down and find it, and save that, and then that should come back up in online status. There we go. And that's really it. I mean, it looks simple because we're using Blink databases. This can take a long time, but a lot of it is just, kick things off. Wait a minute to make sure there's not some kind of error message thrown, and if it's just doing its thing, you can just walk away and come back and check it later. So you don't have to babysit it the whole time while it's running, but you probably do want to check on it periodically just to see if it's thrown any errors or if it's finished. So one caveat with this, when you're making these backups, try to make sure you have enough free space on the drive for the backup. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same amount of free space as the actual database currently is, because when it does the backup, it will do some compression and it will strip out the white space and things like that. But you do want to make sure that you've got enough space, sufficient space to make those copies and on both sides, so you can copy it over to the other side as well and do the restore. And then once the restore has been successful, you see your database is active and you see available data populating there, then you can just delete those files. So that's pretty much it for the process. That was just kind of the quick 10,000-foot view, but yeah, it really wouldn't be much different doing the live thing, except for the amount of time it would take for all the data to copy or export, copy over to the other server and then import. It just takes a while to compress and decompress all that data and do the inserts. All right, is there any questions?
There is one Q&A question. If anybody has any questions, go ahead, ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right corner of your screen. The question that came in was, will there be a way to export the MySQL data and import it into an external Microsoft SQL Server database? Or is the only way to offload the local MySQL database is to export it to an external MySQL database?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And here's the problem: migrating data between MySQL and Microsoft SQL has not been the most easy or successful process we've ever attempted. We currently do not support it, just because we've attempted it in the past and frequently run into issues and problems, and it just becomes a very time-consuming issue to try and figure that out. Not to say that it's not possible to do. It can be done, but it may require some custom work from a database guru. Like we had a large customer, for example, that had a 120 gig MySQL database, and they did want to export the whole thing over, and they actually hired some consultants to do that process for them. But it's probably going to be unique to every environment, and depending on which version you're migrating from and which version you're migrating to. In fact, the consultants actually provided their steps, and we tried to reproduce in our lab, and we ran into errors and issues that they didn't report in their documentation. So, yeah, it's just a very finicky thing. We don't really have a good firm process or path to migrate that data currently. I'm hoping at some point we will, but right now it's just not something we really support. So this is where it becomes important when you're planning out deploying Variphy. Are you going to have a smaller organization with not a lot of call data, and you're only going to keep 6 months or a year? If so, that's probably fine with just a local MySQL. Are you a larger enterprise organization that's going to keep a huge multi-year database of call data? Then you definitely want to go with a more high-end Microsoft SQL environment, and even with with always-on availability and failover and all that, which we do support. That's definitely something you'd want to consider for a larger environment.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Great job as always.
Thank you.
We can skip the Q&A panel, and no, I guess we can we can jump to the gift card. So the moment we've all been waiting for, the winner of this week's workshop gift card is Loretta Dreyer. Congratulations, Loretta. Your account manager will be reaching out to you shortly to get you paid. And don't forget to join us next week when Matt and Dre will go over the CUCM subsets. All right. Thank you, everyone, for once again taking time to join us today. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.